recording this a few days after my daughter turned 8 months old. I can't quite believe it's gone so fast. It's strange, at the beginning it felt like time went super slow, but as each month has gone by, it's sped up rapidly. I think part of it is because milestones are coming thick and fast, and our interactions with us continue to grow. This is the 7th time I'm doing one of my top lessons end of year roundups. I always flick through the previous installments to get a feel for where I was, where I've been, and if I've learned from the past. Oftentimes, I see lessons from 7 years ago that feel timeless and will never get old. Sometimes I look and cringe at what was going on in my life and the clear influence it's had on my writing. I've yet to get to the end of a year since as long as I can remember and think life isn't better than it was a year ago, at least on my own scorecard. The chapter of 2023 was the disciplined dad, so let's dive in to see what I figured out along the way. So without further ado, here's my 19 lessons I've learned in 2023. Before we dive into this episode, I want to give a big shout out to our sponsors, Optimum Nutrition, the world's leading premium supplement brand. Their goal is to help you on your health and fitness journey by giving you the best deals on their extensive supplement ranges. We all know real food is key, but let's face it, when we're busy in the day, supplements like protein powders can be a game changer in helping us hit our protein target. I personally love their newly updated plant protein, and before I went vegan, I used to swear by their gold standard whey. As an listener to this podcast, you can get 20% off their UK and US stores by using the code RNT20 at checkout today. And one more thing, if you're a high performer who's enjoying this episode and you want to explore what starting your own transformation could look like, go to www.rntfitness.co.uk/pro to find out more and book a call with our team today. Number 1, it's a different feeling when it's your child. I never had much interest in other people's kids, but it was different when Sia entered the world. I remember a few months before she was born, I went for a walk with my dad and one question on my mind: what if I don't feel much when she arrives? I shared this with Chani at the time, and she recently said she can't believe I held this irrational fear. It turns out it's very normal. I guess because we're not the ones holding the baby in our stomach, why would we feel that emotional, tight-knit bond a mother does right from pregnancy? My dad's advice was straightforward. You'll know when she arrives. One of my best friends said the same thing. He was damn right. Because right from when her head popped out, and her head was the only thing showing for a moment, there was an immediate rush of love. Interestingly, the love has grown most since she turned 4 or 5 months old, because I've been able to play more of an active role in her day-to-day, whether it be swimming, blabbering, or simply more interaction. When Sia was born, I shared 11 thoughts from the first 11 days in an Instagram carousel. I still don't think I've cracked the answer to most of them. Number 1, your baby won't check your calendar, so throw it away. Number 2, how does one sperm and one egg create an actual human being? Number 3, I wonder how much trial and error has gone into raising humans. Imagine being one of the first. Number 4, which soul entered my daughter's body? Where was it before? Number 5, a pregnant woman's maximum force production is remarkable. I had this passing thought during birth when Chani was in a deep squat position, thinking, I wonder how much Chani could lift right now. Number 6, I wonder what it would be like when my baby gives birth to her baby. Number 7, it's crazy how fast your primal instincts kick in. I'd never changed a nappy before. Now I reckon I could be the demo guy for Pampers. Number 8, having a baby creates a new sense of responsibility that's hard to imagine beforehand. Number 9, the drive home from the hospital will make any driving instructor proud. Number 10, babies have no massive goals or distractions, no time pressure, no inflated sense of ego or self, no monkey mind interfering with their beautiful existence. As a 31-year-old with a type A personality trying to build a business, observing a baby is a perfect reminder for learning how to enjoy my time here. And number 11, you get way too much respect as a dad in public. A mother could be tending to triplets all on her own, but us dads are treated as war heroes for pushing a pram. Moving on to the next lesson, number 2, becoming a dad has made me less in a rush and has helped me progressively break my workaholism. For the past 3 years, I've tried everything to break my workaholism and my addiction to the grind. Whilst I'm not completely sober, I've made more progress this year than all of the years combined. The only difference is Sia. Before becoming a dad, my obsession with work was by far the biggest vice I wanted to break. I didn't want to be an absent dad, physically or mentally, and I didn't want burnout to stop me being there emotionally. This is the reason I quit being a personal trainer in the first place. I saw my colleagues having children and either never seeing them or being too exhausted to be present. I had to reconnect with this in January, where I built a 12-week baby winter hit list. The goal was to reduce my day-to-day requirement in the business, empower more of my team, and be able to enjoy time with Sia. Unsurprisingly, it was by far the most productive period of the year, because deadlines get things done. Life before having a baby meant you could do whatever you wanted. Wake up whenever, work whenever, train whenever. And I guess I still can do this, but it'd mean missing out on the best of times. So here's what I put in place as non-negotiables for Sia. It's 7:30am to 8:30am breakfast time, and it's 5:30pm to 6:30pm/7pm play, bath time, and bedtime, depending on the day and how the naps have gone. It was at first really weird not working in those periods, and I felt guilty, but that quickly dissipated as I realized they became the anchors of my day and the bare minimums I wanted to put into place. I can count on one hand how many breakfasts I've missed, and the only reason I ever miss bath time is if I'm out, which may happen 2-3 times a month. These times have taught me to slow down, rush my days less, and enjoy the little moments. In the 8 months so far, I've refined more and more of what I want out of this next season of life. Working myself to exhaustion is no longer something I wear as a badge of honor. The hustle culture I used to embrace actually makes me feel sick now. And anytime bad habits rear their ugly head, I immediately realize why it no longer serves me. I can almost automatically feel when I'm out of alignment with my 3 priorities: Sia and Chandni, physical health, and business building of R&T. The harmony between the 3 is critical. In 2023, they've rotated top spots multiple times, depending on travel, business goals, Sia's age, and my fitness goals. For example, the Muay Thai fight, but they've always been those top 3. Lesson number 3. Ambition is a beautiful paradox. It creates the drive to make real change happen in your life, but if it goes unchecked, it can be the very same thing that destroys you. I read a powerful quote by philosopher Nassim Taleb. It said something like, "The world is split between those who don't know how to start making money and those who don't know when to stop." I haven't been able to get it out of my head because to me, it represents the importance of A, defining the games you want to play, B, creating your rules of play, and C, understanding what success looks like. I recently watched an excellent show called The Peaky Blinders, and the lead character, Tommy Shelby, is a perfect example of this. His ambitious mind enables him to achieve external success, but his broken soul leaves his internal state much to be desired. As I get older, I'm trying to get more and more to the roots of my own ambition, whilst having the self-awareness to know what's my ego talking and what's the genuine thing I want. It can get murky, so I try the following. The first is to marinate on big ideas, big goals for a minimum of 30 days. This usually kicks out the initial emotion and excitement and brings logic. The second is to speak to mentors, advisors, and friends I trust to give me harsh truths. If they answer with, "Is this what you actually want, or is it your ego talking?" I know what the deal is. And the third is, very simple, ask Chandni. I've thought more and more about this ambition conundrum throughout the year. The more I can play my own game with my own rules and to my own version of success, the less I need from anyone else. This is when I truly feel free to do my absolute best. Lesson number 4, the desire to prove yourself can be a poisonous habit of the mind. This year I've finally started to lose the need to constantly prove myself. I think my workaholism tendencies come from the desire to feel like I'm enough. Most ambition, I suspect, comes from a place of perceived lack of to begin with. But where I went wrong is letting the same scarcity fuel outlive its original purpose. When this happens, the desire to prove yourself can become a poisonous habit of the mind. You forget why you put yourself through so much pain, and it becomes a default. It's like any bad habit or vice. Having a daughter has forced me to level up my standards because I know our living is the learning. And if this is true, I want my daughter to see me work, create, and build from a place of abundance, love, and fun, not an imprisoned mind. On the flip side, I'm excited to pass on strong values of prioritizing physical health. For many years, I've paid attention to how kids model parents. And I said to a friend the other day whilst walking in a park, parenting would be a lot harder if you were unfit or out of shape. Lesson number 5. A mother's love is a magic thing to witness. She will do anything and everything for her children. I felt it myself, but it's another thing to witness it as an adult. I can't quite put into words this lesson. I've experienced too many instances of simple wonder of how one can be capable of so much love. I've always struggled with expressions of love. It took me 28 years to tell my parents I love them. And funny enough, Chandni was the first to say it to me, and that happened after we moved in together. I've wanted to break this cycle of mine with Sia, so I make a conscious effort to tell her I love her daily. But my love must feel like a drop in the ocean compared to what a mother brings. I felt a mother's love from a young age with my own, but I've never witnessed it to another baby this closely as an adult. The most relatable example every dad can probably relate to is how mothers survive and thrive on such little sleep. I've always been a sucker for sleep. I still need 8 to 9 hours uninterrupted to feel good. But how mothers do it, yet still have boundless energy, joy, and happiness when morning arrives. The only answer must be the fuel of unconditional love. Lesson number 6. What I value above all else is freedom. I've learned this year the life you live now is a result of the decisions you made 3 to 7 years ago. As a personal trainer, I crave freedom. My days were controlled by constant appointments. I worked all day in a basement, and if I didn't work, I didn't get paid. I loved the result of my work, so I stuck with it for a while until I considered my future. That's when I realized A, I didn't want to commute, and I'm still shocked I spent 12 to 16 hours a week for 5 years straight simply getting to and from work. B, I wanted location independence versus only being able to work from one place. And C, flexibility of working times was very important versus the unsociable hours of a personal trainer. Living this life in my early 20s with minimal responsibilities, fueled by an entrepreneurial spirit, meant setting up RNC was a no-brainer. I love helping others achieve body transformations, and I love business. This was the perfect way to blend the two, in my own terms. In fact, for a few years, my gauge of success was simple: being able to work from anywhere, anytime, and on my own terms. Now this is part of a wider scorecard, but I understand it has its roots in freedom. 2023 has been the year I've counted my blessings. I'm not a personal trainer anymore. This freedom has enabled me to live a life by my design and in line with my values of growth, physical health, and freedom. I wrote in an article earlier this year and also published it as an episode on the podcast called 31 Harsh Truths I Wish I Knew at 21. And inside I wrote, paradise is no alarms, long walks in the park, writing, thinking time, clear calendars, hard exercise, and deep conversations with loved ones. I have little to add to this except to the note that nothing on this list costs money. My goal is to craft my days like this, because what if this was the paradise we've all been promised? The lesson I take here is the importance of understanding and accepting your core fundamental values and steering your life towards it. For me, it's crafting as many of these days as possible. And in Mexico, our recent trip abroad for a month, I had to pinch myself like, damn, this is exactly where I've always wanted to be. Lesson number 7. Asking, what if this is the last time, can quickly bring you into a state of presence and gratitude. This new mental model began when I started going on walks with Sia earlier into her life. I've always struggled with gratitude, so asking, what if this is it, can really dial me into the present. It's a harsh reminder of the fragility of life and a framework I believe has its root in the Stoics. I received a beautiful book recently called The Daily Dad by Ryan Holiday from a friend, and every day is a new sentiment around parenting. In December specifically, it emphasizes this concept of mortality and the idea that this could be the moment. It also describes an evening ritual of Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, where he'd remind himself his children may not be there in the morning. The passage states, as you kiss your son goodnight, says Epictetus, whisper to yourself, he may be dead in the morning. Don't tempt fate, you say. By talking about a natural event? Is fate tempted when we speak of grain being reaped? The early death of many of his own children empowered him to be grateful for every moment. So every time I think about rushing bath time or whizzing through the pre-bed massage, I think, what if this is the last time? And with milestones coming thick and fast, it could be as simple as, what if this is the last time she does this thing before something new? Lesson number 8, investing in space, convenience, and coaching pays back in spades. For many years when traveling, my focus was on good enough, especially on my longer stints abroad, where I stayed at some very questionable hostels and lodges. My mindset was simple. I don't need much, so the more basic, the better. I realized as I've gotten older, I really like space, physically and time in my days, as well as convenience. My default setting is pretty lazy, so anything I can do to speed up processes is a winning in my book. Before, I'd been afraid to spend any money because I saw it as a waste. In 2023, I'm starting to change my mindset on this. It's work in progress, but now I see my time away from home as an investment, where I'm expanding my thinking, horizons, and cultural understanding. Because I still work normal days when away, if I'm living in cramped spaces, it's impossible to do good work. Similarly at home, I've never had a trainer at the gym. This year, I've had 2 one-to-one sessions with my Muay Thai coach every single week. When I go away, I book in one-to-ones whenever I can. Why? Because I don't want to think about my training. I want the best results, and I don't want to waste time. As I've gotten into running, I invested in improving my technique, and the results are insane. I've always valued investments in my business and coaches for my bodybuilding days. This year, I've started to shift my mindset around money in more aspects, and the ROI has been tremendous. As a side note, this is why what we do at RNT is so powerful, because you get to hire world-leading experts to take the thinking out and time collapse your goals in record time. If you'd like to explore what this looks like, go to www.rntfitness.com/start to apply. Lesson number 9, close friends can become strangers, and that's okay. Something I battled with this year is understanding and accepting the mechanics of drifting close friendships. I always prided myself on maintaining a strong, tight-knit group of long-term friends. And as each year has passed by, I've noticed myself drifting away from a few. I remember my mum once told me, there's a reason why at my age I have very few, if any, real close friends. With personal growth comes new avenues, new interests, and most importantly, a new standard for the people you want around you. When you make a step change in your life, your perspective shifts to the point previous common ground disappears. This seasonality of friendships is something I've only grasped now, having been through a few different seasons of life. In the last decade, it's been the following. The first season was being a personal trainer in the city, 2013 to 2017. Second was RNT without Chandni, 2017 to 2018. A short season, and I'm glad I met her early on. Third season was Chandni, RNT, and Married Life, which is 2018 to 2022. And the fourth season, the one I'm in currently, is becoming a dad whilst quote-unquote retiring from bodybuilding. And I feel like my training periods feel just as much of a season as anything else. And this is 2022 to where we are now. After a season finishes, what you're left with is a nostalgia of the good times and a bittersweet reminder of a few more who left the tribe. It reminds me of what my dad often reminds me of. Some of these friends will come back if the seasons align, but most won't, and that's okay. I was talking about this with a friend of mine in a similar boat, but a few years ahead of me in life. They spoke about the 4 pillars of relationships, inspired, I believe, by some of Jay Shetty's work. They are the 4 C's: care, consistency, competence, and character. Care is someone who loves you unconditionally and may or may not always be there. Competence is someone you can take advice from, someone who can help you grow, etc. Character is someone who guides you and keeps you grounded in your morals and values. And consistency is someone you can always count on to be there. The exercise my friend explained was bucketing and accepting that most long-term friends will fall into care and consistency. And that's cool. If you know those are the only pillars they're fulfilling, you won't expect more. The more pillars one fulfills, the more you'll be drawn to them and the stronger the bond will be. The problem is the people who can meet your competence and character pillars are tough, especially when you're growing. How you feel around people is also a great gauge for what pillars a person may be filling. Lesson number 10. You can't intuitively eat until you break an all or nothing mindset. Before I went vegan on January 1st, 2022, I cracked the code of intuitive eating. I could stay in great shape easily no matter what. As with any lifestyle change, there's a tricky period of readjustment before it becomes normal. I'd say for the first 18 months, until mid-2023, it was all about relearning. I needed enough exposure to different environments, emotions, and events over a long enough period of time to get back to intuitive eating. For my recent trip to Mexico, I decided to put my work to the test by not carrying any scales with me, using only my intuition to stay the same body weight. And I nailed it. I left 77 kilos and I came back 76.8 kilos. This was despite eating out 2 to 3 times a day with desserts every single night. The main 5 principles to guide me were the following. The first was to start your day right. I always ate the same breakfast when away: oats, protein powder, banana, and peanut butter. This meal keeps me going for 4 to 5 hours and helps set the tone for later on. This does require taking protein powder with you. The second is to plan ahead. If you're vegan and you care about protein, you won't get it by accident. The third is being adaptable. We were in a few remote places in Mexico, so for a few days, there was no vegan food on the menu. So I'd get creative by asking for refried beans, avocado, tortilla wraps with a boatload of veg. This combination was in almost every local mini supermarket and restaurant, so I was all good. Number 4, don't plan indulgent days. The mistake to make when you're trying to maintain your weight is having days where you blow your diet with a label on it. Pre-planned indulgent days, cheat days, whatever you want to call it. The more I've stayed leaner for longer, the more I realize having no on or off days is critical. It's a lifestyle. I eat dessert most days, even at home, because I don't eat too much of it. The moment you start blowing out or plan these blowouts is when trouble appears. Breaking that all or nothing mindset is the best thing you can do for a lifestyle solution. And number 5, don't eat beyond fullness. This sounds really obvious, but a mental cue I use now more than ever when eating is simple. When I'm full, stop. When you force beyond fullness, weight gain becomes inevitable. Your body is smart, so listen to it. Lesson number 11. Veganism is a philosophy and way of living, not a diet. When I figured out how to make a vegan diet sustainable from a diet perspective, I started to tap into the deeper questions behind the philosophy. Veganism is not a diet, it's a way of living. As you peel back the layers to more truths behind farming, biodiversity, and the real threat on the planet, the idea of going back to previous eating habits feels alien. It was the single biggest question I got in 2022. Are you planning to stay vegan? A friend of mine once said to me in passing as I was considering the switch a few years ago, if you think conscientiously enough over a long enough period of time, the outcome of turning vegan is inevitable. The problem is a case of outside, out of mind. But if we're privileged enough to even discuss what we put in our mouth, I think it's worth taking the extra step of considering where it came from. Lesson number 12. Maintaining a body takes 1/3 of the work it took to build it. Cardio won't kill it. I don't think I've set a single personal record this year in the gym. I don't think I've tried to or had any desire to. Maybe at first. I've never weight trained so infrequently in my life. It's been exactly a year of weight training no more than twice a week, hitting body parts no more than once a week, sometimes longer. Ever since I picked up a weight, I've trained without fail at least 4 times a week. I never liked 3 days. But since my passion for Muay Thai grew, it's completely taken over. 2 days is my sweet spot for recovery and maintenance, over an upper-lower split. And 2023 has been split into 4 distinct phases of my training. From January to March, it was preparing for a Muay Thai fight. From April to June, I had injured ribs, so it was maintenance work only. From July to September, it was more of a running focus with 2 half marathons in the books. And October to December, it was training for fun. It's been alternating periods of intensity and volume with periods of either forced or voluntary slowing down. I've also rotated my area of focus between Muay Thai and running, depending on what I want to focus on. Lesson number 13. The trick to hybrid training is nailing your recovery. The biggest risk is overtraining. Unfortunately, injuries this year have been rife from a combination of overuse, overreaching, and sometimes just getting hit too hard, including a trip to A&E with a debilitating neck spasm. Balancing the 3 disciplines of weight training, running, and Muay Thai has been difficult. I've burnt out a few times this year, and going into 2024, one of my objectives is to figure out the sweet spot and sit in it as long as I can. Part of this is being proactive with recovery days. With a business and a newborn, I have to be realistic with what I can recover from. My Type A personality gets excited when planning 2-a-day training sessions, but reality kicks in when I'm broken a few weeks later. From my bodybuilding days, I also know that more than 5 days a week, with 2 or 3 of them being really hard sessions, that puts me at risk of not recovering. I also realize I've accumulated a bit of challenge fatigue this year, having competed in Muay Thai and 2 half marathons, one of which was a bit unplanned. So I'm considering a year off doing anything extreme. What I have learned this year is sometimes I now like to run, sometimes I like to kick things, and sometimes I still like to get under some heavy ass weight. And by the way, when I get asked why I love Muay Thai, it's simple. It empties the mind and allows me to focus entirely on the task at hand. It takes me into the void where nothing matters but the moment I'm in. When you're coordinating your body in new positions, or you're trying to avoid getting hit, you can't do anything but be all in on the present. Lesson number 14. Leaning into your deep-rooted fears makes you feel alive. The morning of my fight on March 17th, I had a throwback to a moment from when I was 15. I've been doing a few boxing sessions at the local gym when the instructor asked if I fancied sparring. I got into the ring that day and was humbled by punch after punch from a pretty big guy. I remember him saying after, he was about 4 stone heavier than me. As a 15-year-old skinny fat kid, those were some pretty hard knocks. I never stepped foot in that boxing gym again. Despite loving the training, I remember feeling embarrassed and scared. This, combined with the fact I got mugged at a similar time, meant that I went all in on weight training to try and get bigger and build my confidence. All I could think about on fight night was that moment of letting my fears get the best of me. The decision not to go back to the boxing gym. So my only goal for the fight was to stand my ground, never fall back, and keep going no matter what. About 15 to 20 seconds in, I was picked up and slammed to the ground. I remember feeling the lights getting knocked out of me, with the roaring sound of thousands in the crowd ringing in my ears. I knew this was the test. I got up, the referee checked in on me, and I got back into it. About 30 seconds later, it happened again. I lost the first round, but the second round was mine. The third could have gone either way, so the fight ended in a draw. What I was most proud of is the fact that I stayed calm and steady throughout. Deep down, I knew I won, regardless. What I learned from this, and the martial art as a whole, is leaning right into your fears makes you feel alive. It's never too late to rewrite those childhood memories or perceptions you create in your head. I hurt my ribs pretty bad from the fight, but since recovery, I've continued to lean into the process of getting into the ring, sparring, and learning to respond after getting punched in the face. Quick one before we dive in. If you're enjoying these episodes and want to learn a little bit more behind the secrets of our R&T transformations, register for our next free masterclass on scorecard.rntfitness.com/masterclass. I'll put the link in the show notes as well. The aim of the masterclass is simple: to give you exactly what you need to kickstart your transformation. It's only 60 minutes, totally free, and I'll be teaching some really cool stuff live, with many opportunities to ask questions. So head to scorecard.rntfitness.com/masterclass to see the next day, and I'll see you there. Lesson number 15. Sometimes you got to use dopamine to sprint your way to long-term transformation. I used to shun dopamine. I was never a fan of hacks or cultivating a sense of excitement to get into shape. Over the past year, I've realized the power of using dopamine to sprint your way to a long-term transformation. Dopamine, in the context of a long game, can be a powerful tool to keep making progress. I remember speaking on our podcast with body composition expert Lar McDonald, where he predicted the way to solve the weight loss problem will be via dopamine manipulation from the big tech companies. If you think about what they've done with social media, imagine the same for getting fit. This year, we've tested a few initiatives to replicate this idea of short-term hype feeding into long-term change. And so far, the results have been excellent. In 2024, our plan is to refine these more and more so people who'd never expect to get results can transform their lives. This year, we've tested a few initiatives in the form of challenges to replicate this idea of short-term hype feeding into long-term change. And so far, the results have been excellent. In 2024, our plan is to refine these more and more so people who'd never expect to get results can transform their lives. Lesson number 16. Results will always be number one. I'm going to borrow something I wrote in 2017 for this one. In an industry full of promises, fads, myths, and snake oil salesmen, the best marketing method is and always will be results. It's a fundamental core value of ours. All our coaches' performance is judged on results and results alone. Whether that be physical, mental, or the fact they've been able to guide our members through our 5-phase methodology, nothing else matters. I think a big reason we've stuck around, where many may have come and gone, is because our business is built on results. You only need to watch our recent awards ceremony to see we get the best results in the industry. And I've linked the video to this in the show notes if you'd like to check it out. When I saw my team put together the advert for the awards, it looked like they were promoting a Marvel movie. Ordinary people, extraordinary results. That's what R&T is all about. Reflecting on the 2023 awards connects me right back to why we started R&T in the first place, to be the best in class at producing results, and to create the best educational hub for ordinary people to learn how to achieve a life-changing body transformation. It also made me realize how we've developed a unique profile for success on the R&T journey. Over 80% of our award nominees have the following in common. They were aged between 35 and 50. For men, they lost 20 to 30 plus kilos. For women, they lost 10 to 20 plus kilos. They were parents of young kids. They achieved career success at the expense of health. And they tried everything in fitness, but never achieved any real results. What's exciting is my team and I are always iterating our product to make it slicker, faster, and easier for our members to get results. The only catch? A body transformation still requires honest hard work. But it's one of the few things in life you can't cheat, you can't buy, and that's why it's such a special feeling when you get there. Lesson number 17. My role in the business has evolved to asking who, not how. 2 conversations this year changed my approach to business. The first was with one of my team, Ed, prior to Sia's birth. He was welcoming his second child at the same time. And when discussing paternity leave, he said, "The business will tick along fine without you, but it won't grow." The second was with a friend of mine who mentioned this year he tripled the business working 10 to 15 hours a week. And whether he's there or not, growth will continue. These 2 conversations, plus bringing Sia into the world, really highlighted the importance of building a proper business. I've learned this year the value of a business is inversely proportional to the involvement of the founder. I don't have any plans on the horizon to sell R&T, but I'm excited at the challenge and prospect of creating a business that can still grow without reliance on me. Thinking about this has changed my internal philosophy of thinking from how can I do this to who can do this. My role is continuing to change, whereby if I'm quote unquote doing something in the day-to-day, it's a red flag. In fact, to get clarity on where I need to delegate better, I've started to track these specific tasks by a toggle timer. I'll then use this data to refine my delegation, accountability, and organizational skills to create a business that lasts. Lesson number 18. We need to be reminded of the same fundamental principles instead of constant exposure to new information. The more years I spend in business, the more I realize most things are a distraction. As Stephen Covey says, the main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing. In fact, a few friends slightly ahead of me always say that business should be boring. For a long time, I knew this concept but didn't really embrace it. I'm an ideas guy, so I like to throw new things into the mix to keep it fun. The only problem is, it's not fun for anyone else on the team. So this year, I've made a more conscious effort to do things like A, reread the same books I've yet to implement in full, B, channel new idea energy into micro improvements of the same thing, like our new transformation challenges, and C, repeating the same messages over and over again, but in creative new ways. I've tried to embrace the role of chief reminding officer more and more, and empowered my team to do the same. Whether it's marketing, sales, or coaching, most of us need reminding of the same fundamental principles. Lesson number 19. Working on your relationship together is even more important when you're parents. Since 2019, Chani and I have maintained a weekly couples check-in ritual. We have a dedicated journal for this where we'll sit down and go through the following. Number 1, appreciations, a minimum of 3 to recognize the little things. Number 2, the to-dos we have together, which is usually house or financial admin stuff. Number 3, plan for good times, and this is something in the diary together for the next 7 days. And number 4, opportunities to improve, and this is where you get it all out and into the open, and really is the game changer of this ritual. Number 5, see as new milestones, which is a new addition for us to reflect on. And number 6, weekly wins, big and small, personal and professional. Everything's possible here. This ritual has evolved over the years as we've grown in our relationship. We started this ritual 16 months into dating at the end of 2019. So this journal has helped us through moving in together, lockdown, getting married, working together, traveling the world, and becoming parents. It's a constant anchor where we aim to keep communication open and clear and always move forward. We found weekly to be the perfect cadence. Anything longer and it's easy to forget the little things and or let the opportunities to improve either build up or get missed in the moment. As life gets busy and time alone becomes more precious as parents, the importance only grows. It symbolizes something more than just a series of questions or a tick box. It's an opportunity to connect, reflect, and share gratitude, whilst recognizing the strength of our relationship is the springboard to anything we do in life. So what does 2024 hold? Much of what I think about next year is about staying in the middle lane. No extremes, no burnout, and no new injuries. I've enjoyed the richness and joy of 2023. I felt emotions I didn't think I was capable of, and I've changed habits I didn't think I could break. And if you told me a year ago I'd have stepped into a ring with a stranger and held my own, I'd have laughed at you. I said to my Muay Thai coach the morning of finalizing this podcast, I can't believe I can do certain things now in the ring. His reply is the perfect note to finish 2023. When we met a year ago, we started step by step, one thing at a time. Every session, we can work on something to get a little bit better at. A year later, all the small wins add up. I've butchered his words here, but my final sentiment is to never underestimate what you can do in a year when you go all in on the process. If for you it's a body transformation, you can take your first step by applying for a position on our world-leading transformation program, RNC Pro, by going to www.rncfitness.com/start. In closing, I want to thank you all for being a part of this journey. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I look forward to growing together in 2024.